Finally, we can complete the entire story of Days of Future Past. Stay tuned. What's going on, comic friends? It's Ryan the Colossus Collector, and thank you for stopping by my channel. So today I want to talk to you about this brand new book I got. It's a modern book. It's X-Men Days of Future Past Doomsday #1. And you might be wondering, oh, Ryan, you got a modern book on your channel. What's going on here? Well, I know I'm not a big collector of modern books, and I'm not even a big reader of modern books. But and that's not because I don't like modern books. It's because I'm just so preoccupied reading uh, vintage books and reading the Claremont run of X-Men, and I'm just that's kind of where my head's at. And I like to collect older vintage books, but I will say I've read a chunk of the Krakoan age of X-Men, and I definitely want to get back to reading that more in the future. And I'm sure there's a number of modern books that I would like to read and will read in the future. But this one particularly got my attention. This is a new story, a mini series that they're running, Marvel's running, and it is basically filling in the gap between the present and the future during the Days of Future Past saga from the Claremont era of Uncanny X-Men. This is basically going to tell the story of what led to that post-apocalyptic future that Kitty Pryde comes back uh, from in Days of Future Past to try and stave off that disastrous future. And this is going to tell the whole story of how they got to that point. And I just think that's an amazing story to tell. So many things, and like how the various mutants and X-Men died, and just the political landscape, and what slowly occurred and transpired to lead to such a disastrous future for mutant kind, and for the whole world. And so I'm just really excited to read this, and I thought it would be a great video series to just basically read this book with you, the comic community, and tell the story on my channel as the issues come out. So this is the first issue. I'm really excited to dive in, and let's see how it begins. X-Men Days of Future Past Doomsday, Issue 1. Great X-Men team cover as they fight the Sentinels. Let's get into the story. Year 28. They're almost on top of us! Sean! Sean Cassidy, aka Banshee, deceased. This is a story about the beginning of the end of the world. My name is Catherine Pryde Rasputin. I'm a mutant, a person born with a genetic difference that sets us apart from the rest of humanity. Today, it's a crime to be a mutant, to simply live. Warren Worthington III, aka Angel, winged mutant. Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, X-Men team leader, former wielder of optic blasts. Peter Rasputin, aka Colossus, man of organic steel. Catherine Pryde Rasputin, aka Shadowcat, intangible ninja. Come on, we're almost to the Hudson! Since I was 12, I've been a member of the X-Men, a team of genuine, real-life superheroes who actually saved the world more than once. There are still X-Men, but we're not a team anymore. We don't save the world. It's all we can do to save ourselves. No! What's happening? It's Warren. He's gone. Someone needs to hang back and hold them off. Scott, no! Peter, get everyone out of here. Ketya, Scott is correct. No, I'm not leaving him. We've lost too many already. And this is for them! The dream is still... Uncle Scott! It killed him. He was right, though. No more running. Charles Rasputin, aka Sprite, intangibility control. Jean Rasputin, aka Goliath, girl of organic steel. No! Jean! Charles! Vernis! Come back! My children, my heart, my soul, my reason for being. Jean, I'm gonna phase him through the ground. Get ready. Yup, just like we practiced in the Danger Mansion. My pride in them is outstripped only by how much I fear for their lives. Peter, I know, I'll get them. We both race, inwardly cursing ourselves that we let it get even this far. And just like that, quicker than a heartbeat, the world. The world ends. How did we get here? Everything was once so innocent and full of hope. Like me. People say it all began to turn when Senator Robert Kelly was assassinated, but prejudice and hatred doesn't need a start. Year 4. It just needs an excuse. Stryker sworn in. Year 5. The Mutant Control Act passed with bipartisan support. It was only because Matthew Murdoch gave the argument of his life that the Supreme Court struck it down, but that didn't stop them. Year 6. Hate always finds another way. Year 11. And the Supreme Court proved it was no friend to mutant kind when they overturned the 22nd Amendment and effectively made William Stryker president for life. Meanwhile, the Sentinels went on the march. The propaganda was that they were deployed solely for protection as a necessary deterrent. What this really meant was that they just walked around. At least, that's what we thought they were just doing. Oh, they were walking around all right. Walking around and detecting and cataloging mutants, so that they'd be ready to move on all of us when the time came. Year 18, Stamford, Connecticut. The Defenders. The Avengers resigned in protest, but the government just created a new super team. Rachel, look out! Franklin Richards, aka Powerhouse, Reality Warper. OMG. Boyfriends are so overprotective. Rachel Summers, aka Marvel Girl, telepath, telekinetic, superhero royalty. Am I right? Obadiah Stane, aka Ironmonger, patent and technology stealing billionaire, government sanctioned hero. Wait. Jonathan Walker, aka Captain America, government sanctioned Star Spangled Avenger. Something ain't right here. Kakai? Mary McPherson, aka Titania. That one. His scent's all wrong, like he's got some kind of chemical or drug in his system. Lorna, get away from that guy. What? Lorna Dane, aka Polaris, Mistress of Magnetism. Robert Hunter, aka Nitro, Human Bomb. Lorna! Washington, D.C. The President is declaring martial law. Valerie Cooper, Office of National Emergency Liaison for Mutant Affairs. Because of Stanford? Of course! Henry Peter Gyrick, federal bureaucrat. But getting Stryker to implement martial law was the plan. Wasn't it? Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, reputed mobster never convicted. Simon Trask, anti-mutant demagogue heir to the Trask fortune and Sentinel program. Yes, it was, but there may be unintended consequences, such as... The Sentinel's primary directive is to maintain order and protect the populace. I'm concerned they might determine that the most efficient means to do so is to simply take over. And that has what to do with Stanford? Martial law means the suspension of civil rights. Taking control of America is certainly easier once democracy is on a timeout. After all, isn't that why the four of us orchestrated Stanford? You're saying you think at some point the Sentinels will decide we're working for them instead of the other way around? I'm saying, Mr. Fisk, that they may already have. Like any other form of prejudice, anti-mutant prejudice has no reasonable justification. This isn't prejudice, Captain Rogers. This is concern. Justifiable, logical concern. Look, I get it. You like mutants. You resigned as Captain America in solidarity with them. And there's a part of me that respects that. But that doesn't change the fact that mutants are dangerous. Do you deny that? Unequivocally, mutants are no more good or evil than so-called baseline humans. Except we're not talking about good and evil. We're talking about the dangers, the very real dangers posed by their powers. The world, this country in particular, is replete with non-mutant powered superheroes. You don't seem to have any problem with them. I wouldn't go that far, but the difference here is that we're talking about naturally occurring powers that manifest at puberty. We're talking about kids not old enough to drink, smoke, drive, vote, or consent to sex, walking around with powers that are the equivalent of 10 loaded handguns. Are you going to tell me that we don't have the right to be afraid? That regulating these human weapons isn't the safe and necessary thing to do? This isn't prejudice, Captain. It's common sense. Trask scored a lot of points that night. And he hit upon the truth when he implied not having much love for the superpowered. Anti-mutant sentiment began to spread to anti-hero sentiment. Avengers Mansion, New York, New York. And protests turned violent. Okay, folks, that's enough of that. Everyone knows the only people who can fight in front of the Avengers Mansion are the Avengers. No, they haven't offered me a membership. No, my fragile ego isn't wounded by that at all. Swearsies. Spider-Man tried to break one particular incident up. It didn't go well. Let's bring the temperature down here by about 100 degrees, okay? Get out of here, mutie! This Gene joke thinks he's better than us! You're an offense against God! On second thought, let's make it 1,000 degrees. Everyone just calm down. Mutie! Mutie! Mutants don't deserve to live. Then it might make you feel better to learn that just because a guy can stick to walls doesn't make him a mutant. His preternatural spider sense didn't make him a mutant either. For all the good it did him. My aunt and uncle didn't raise a dummy. I know when I'm over my head. No! Nobody let this Gene joke get away! He had the proportionate strength of a spider. Which is to say, he could have fought those people off easily, but he reportedly didn't put up a fight. Monster! My nephew was killed by a mutant, you sick freak! People who knew him best said it was because he didn't want to risk hurting anyone. Personally, I find that hard to believe. After all, who lets an angry mob beat them to death? Westchester, New York. The circumstances, I'm afraid, are most dire. Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, powerful psychic mutant rights activist. Hence, my call for all hands on deck. Magneto has been growing ever more concerned about the continually rising tide of anti-mutant sentiment. It ain't just Maggie, bud. Indeed. And yet Magneto's worries have turned toward the world's nuclear arsenals. Specifically, he is concerned about nuclear weapons being under the control of people with such prejudice. Logan, aka Wolverine. Tell him the line forms behind me. Everyday politicians and people in the media compare mutants to living weapons. PMDs, persons of mass destruction. Is it really so hard to fathom they may one day try to use nuclear weapons against us? Forge, super inventor. Perhaps, but I've learned that Magneto intends to take preemptive action by sending his Brotherhood out to seize control of the world's arsenal. Surely that would be impossible. Aurora Monroe, aka Storm. I wouldn't be so sure, love. Remember, every nuke in the world is encased in substance our friend Magneto has complete control over. And he has a veritable army of like-minded mutants at his disposal. Which is why I've asked you all here today, my X-Men. It's a big world, and there are more nuclear weapons in it than we care to fathom. Fortunately, the nature of this threat is so severe that S.H.I.E.L.D. has agreed to help our efforts. Supreme Headquarters International Espionage Law Enforcement Division. They will be providing intelligence as to the Brotherhood's movements, in the hope that we will be able to frustrate them. And then what? Excuse me? We stop Magneto and the Brotherhood today, who's to say they won't try again tomorrow? Or in some circumstances, we're required to take or recover the nuke. What do we do with them then? I don't know, Jean. I truly don't. All we can do is focus on today, in the hope that our efforts mean a better chance for tomorrow. In hindsight, it was idealistic, bordering on naive. Here he was, sending us all out into the world, each one clutching a teaspoon with instructions to empty the ocean. But what he didn't consider, or didn't want to, is what would happen when the world found out. No wonder Magneto dropped the evil mutants modifier from the Brotherhood's name. To the rest of the world, every mutant is evil. Cape Citadel, U.S. military base. And Magneto's latest crusade only reinforced that. Stand down, Eric. Eric Lyncher, aka Magneto, master of magnetism, self-proclaimed. Mutant terrorist leader. You heard the man. Return the nukes. Give me one reason why I should. One? Heck, bub. I'll give you 3. Thank you for the reminder that every bone in your body is laced with metal. Eric, don't you see what you're doing? You're playing right into their hands. The same, Charles, could be said of you. They count on nothing except your pliant acquiescence. They pass laws to make criminals of us, and you do nothing. They send out sentinels to march across our country, and you do nothing. They use us as a pretext to declare martial law, and you do nothing. Tell me, Charles, all these men and women, so many enemies who hate and fear us, and yet the only person you and your X-Men stand against is me. Because you're the one trying to take over the world. To protect us from it. You're a child. You don't know what they're capable of. They'll come for us, for all of us, and we'll tell ourselves, as we always have, that it's all right. They'll brand us like cattle, and we'll tell ourselves that it's no different than a driver's license. They'll put us in ghettos, and we'll tell ourselves it's just for a little while. Then they'll put us in camps, and we'll tell ourselves it will end soon. We'll be right about that much at least. You think I'm speaking of the future. I'm not. I'm telling you about the past. I know it can happen because I've watched it happen. I won't watch it again, not without doing something. I'm sorry, Charles, truly. I'm sorry you don't see what needs to be done. Chuck. Go after him. Stop him. Before it's too late. 30,000 feet above Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. When the U.S. government realized what the Brotherhood was doing, they tried to move some nukes to more secure locations. But Magneto's people were ready for that. Jason Wingard, aka Mastermind, illusionist. And so were we. Get down on the deck, hands behind your head. I'm no lawyer, but I don't think you have the authority to arrest me. After all, we're hardly in your jurisdiction. It's just an illusion. Don't let it throw you. Hello, Jean. It's been some time. You look well. Back in the day, Mastermind messed with Jean's head something fierce. She was determined not to let it happen again, but in doing so, she unleashed a burst of pure psionic energy. To terrible effect. Oh my god, Jean! What did I... Scott! It's okay. We'll figure it all out. Guys, we have a problem. If I'm reading this display right, whatever Jean did... Oh my god. I think it armed the nukes. Can you shut them down, Kitty? Scott, I wouldn't even know where to start. How long? 15 seconds. Go. What? No! Phase yourself and Scott out. I'll contain the blast. No, it's too much! Scott, she's right. You have to trust me. Jean. Scott, she's right. We have to go. I grabbed Scott and phased us both. Whatever would happen would just pass right through us. I would have phased Jean too, but wasn't sure if I made her incorporeal if she could still contain the blast. As it turned out though, she couldn't contain it anyway. Scott! Jean! Even phased, the radiation burned through Scott's eyes. They would have to be surgically removed after, but he'd survive. We both would. And as it turns out, we were the lucky ones. To be continued. So that is the first issue of Days of Future Past, Doomsday. What a heart-wrenching story. Kitty and Colossus losing their kids right off the bat. That ripped my heart out. And then it was a roller coaster of emotion all the way through. Great story. Incredible to put this all together now so many years after the original Days of Future Past story. I can't wait to do this, the next issue. And speaking of the next issue, if you're watching this in about a month or so, you'll be able to click on the second issue of Days of Future Past Doomsday right here. And in the meantime, check out my 1K sub giveaway video. I'm giving away an awesome package. So until the next video, keep collecting.